Even if you're writing a novel or memoir, Dr. Seuss's Horton Hears a Who, a children's fable, is a great example of powerful storytelling. In 2008 words, Theodore Geisel, aka Dr. Seuss, gives us a story that completely aligns with the StoryJoules model. It's been read from generation to generation for more than 70 years. I'm Jule Kucera, creator of StoryJoules, and I help writers stop spinning on plot, figure out what's not working, fix it so they can finish their story. The easiest way to see story structure is by doing a story x-ray, and that's what we're going to do with Horton Hears a Who. If you're intrigued by doing a story x-ray on your work in progress, just click the link below to get the download. Just as a medical x-ray can show a hairline fracture, a story x-ray can pinpoint a weakness in your story. Let's open up Horton Hears a Who and discover the bones. We begin with Horton splashing in the cool of the pool. That's his status quo. But then he hears a small noise, as if some tiny person is calling for help, but he can't see anything. This is Horton's Whiff Inciting Incident. And that's how the Whiff Inciting Incident is. It's very subtle, which is why I have the whiff in front of it. It's just something that the protagonist can miss or minimize. It's the first Joule, the one that gets the story ball rolling. I call them joules because in physics, a joule is a unit of energy. Horton looks at the speck. He thinks it must hold a creature of very small size, too small to be seen by an elephant's eyes. Horton imagines a poor little person shaking with fear and says, I'll just have to save him because, after all, a person's a person no matter how small. Horton lifts the dust speck and places it carefully on a clover. That was Horton's I gotta go, the decision to accept the invitation that was offered in the inciting incident. The I gotta go is Joule number 2. But then a mama kangaroo and her joey arrive, and they don't believe the speck of dust is anything more than a speck. Horton protests, says it might not be one person, it might be a whole family. But the kangaroos leap into the pool, splash water, and Horton says, I can't let them get drowned. So he plucks up the clover and hustles away. This is Horton's whoa, shake up a belief. This is the point where the protagonist goes, oh, this thing I thought it was going to do that was going to be so easy, it's not going to be that easy. Oh, but he doesn't know yet just how difficult it's going to get. As Horton walks through the jungle, the news quickly spread. Horton is out of his head. But Horton continues to carry the clover. I can't put it down. I won't. After all, a person's a person no matter how small. And then Horton stops walking because the speck voice was talking. The voice thanks him for saving their houses, ceilings, floors, churches, and grocery stores. Horton realizes it's not just a person or even a family, it's a whole town. And the town has a name, Who-ville. This is Horton's mindset-shattering midpoint. It's a town. And I love how the illustration so perfectly illustrates the complexity of what's on this clover, not just a person or a family. Horton promises the mayor, you're safe now. Don't worry, I won't let you down. But then the Wickersham brothers' monkeys show up, and the monkeys snatch the clover, and then they give it to an eagle, saying, get rid of this thing. This is Horton's wham, all is lost. He has just pledged to the mayor that he'll protect them, and what's happened? The clover is in an eagle's beak. And poor Horton chased after the bird with groans over stones all that late afternoon into the night. What do you notice graphically about these 2 pages? Imagine you're a small child and you do not yet know how to read. Would you know that this is a dark night of the soul? Yes, you would. Horton spends the next few pages looking for the clover that carries the speck of dust. He's still looking. And then he finds the clover. He found the Whos. He learns that they had a rough time during the travels. Repairs are needed in Who-ville. When asked by the mayor if he'll stick with them, he says, I'll stick through thin and through thick. And I believe that commitment is Horton's return changed. But how is he changed? He's been admirable all the way through the story. But we'll get to find out, because then the kangaroos and the monkeys both show up. And they tell Horton they're going to cage him, and they're going to boil the dust speck in bezelnut oil. This is Horton's dig down deeper, the ultimate test, the biggest crisis in the story deeper. What will Horton do? Will he stick with the Whos and risk being caged? Will he abandon the Who's, save himself, and risk losing his integrity? What will Horton do? Horton remains committed to the Who's. He tells the mayor that everyone has to make noise. The kangaroos don't hear as well as Horton and don't believe him. He tells the mayor that if they fail, every Who will end up in beetle-nut stew. The Who's get to work making noise, but the kangaroos can't hear it. The monkeys lasso Horton and drag him to a cage, while Horton fights back and calls to the mayor, "Don't give up, I believe in you all. A person's a person, no matter how small." The Who's make more noise, and more noise. Horton can hear it, but the kangaroos can't. Horton asks the mayor to look through the town. Is anyone shirking? The mayor rushes from east to west, but everyone seemed to be doing their best. But it wasn't enough, all this ruckus and roar. He had to find someone to help him make more. The mayor keeps racing and searching, and then, just as he felt he was getting nowhere, he finds a small, very small shirker named Jojo, bouncing a yo-yo, not making a sound. The mayor grabs the youth, takes him to the top of the Eiffelberg Tower. The lad lets out a small yop, and that yop broke through. The kangaroos and monkeys heard and believed. Horton smiles. They prove they are persons, no matter how small, and their whole world was saved by the smallest of all. The big kangaroo and the monkeys say they'll join Horton to protect the Who's, and the little kangaroo says, "Me too." What I find especially interesting is Horton has been protecting the Who's all the way through the story. But in that last dig down deeper, what happens is he helps the Who's protect themselves. The Who's are the ones who save themselves, and they are saved the most by the smallest of all. And there you have it. The Joules, the bones of Horton Hears a Who. Are the bones of your story as strong as the bones of this one? If you're not sure, just download the Story X-ray and do this diagnosis on your work in progress. I would love to hear what you learn after doing it. Maybe all is well. Maybe your story has strong bones, but maybe there's a place that needs shoring up. You can't fix it if you can't find it. Thank you. See you next time. Tally ho.